Meta description. Could a single sentence from KTM really ignite a storm around Marc Marquez and rewrite the emotional map of MotoGP 2026 before the engines even roar? Wow. Before you read another line, pause for a second, because what you are about to enter is not just a story, not just another rumor drifting through the paddock like tire smoke after a hard launch. This is the kind of moment that begs a reaction, demands an opinion, and almost dares you to take sides. If you feel the tension already, don't keep it to yourself. Like this story, share it, and if you live and breathe MotoGP, make sure you subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is far from settled and your voice belongs in it. Could one unexpected remark really be enough to shake the foundations of MotoGP 2026? Could a few words, spoken casually yet charged with meaning, place Marc Marquez back at the center of a storm he knows all too well? Or is this yet another chapter in a long psychological war that defines modern racing, where words can wound just as deeply as a failed overtake at 300 km per hour? These questions exploded into existence the moment a voice from KTM broke the silence, and suddenly the paddock was no longer just a workplace, but a battlefield of narratives, emotions, and unspoken fears. Marc Marquez is not a normal rider in the collective imagination of MotoGP. He is not merely a multiple world champion, not just a name on a timing screen. He is a symbol, a disruption, a living reminder that talent combined with obsession can bend reality itself. Every generation has a rider who becomes larger than the sport, and Marquez has long occupied that space, even during the seasons when injuries slowed his body but sharpened his mind. So when KTM, a manufacturer known for its raw ambition and hunger, allowed a statement to slip into the public sphere, the shock was immediate and visceral. At first, the words seemed harmless, almost casual, the kind of comment that might pass unnoticed if spoken about any other rider. But this was Marc Marquez. Context transformed the sentence into a spark, and that spark landed in a paddock soaked in fuel. Mechanics paused mid-task. Engineers exchanged looks that said more than any microphone ever could. Riders smiled politely in public while privately recalculating what this might mean for their own futures. MotoGP, once again, was holding its breath. Why does Marquez provoke this reaction? The answer lies not only in his trophies but in his ability to alter the psychological balance of the grid. When he is strong, everyone feels it. When he is questioned, everyone listens. KTM's words, intentional or not, touched that nerve. Were they challenging him? Were they dismissing him? Or were they revealing an unspoken concern that even they could not fully conceal? The ambiguity was enough to drive speculation into overdrive. MotoGP 2026 already looms as a season of transformation. New technical directions, shifting alliances, and riders entering what could be the defining years of their careers. In that fragile moment of transition, the mention of Marquez by KTM felt like someone knocking over the first domino. The discussion was no longer about lap times or engine configurations. It became about respect, fear, legacy, and the uncomfortable truth that Marc Marquez, no matter the colors he wears, remains a measuring stick for everyone else. Emotionally, the reaction was explosive. Fans who have followed Marquez through triumph and trauma felt the familiar surge of defiance. Doubters resurfaced with sharpened arguments, convinced that time has finally caught up with him. Neutral observers sensed something deeper, something unresolved between the past dominance of Marquez and the future ambitions of manufacturers like KTM. This was not nostalgia clashing with progress. This was power negotiating with inevitability. The paddock thrives on perception. Riders know that belief can shave tenths off a lap, while doubt can add seconds. KTM's statement, whether strategic or spontaneous, altered that perception. It invited Marquez into a conversation he never truly leaves, the conversation about whether he is still the force that once terrified rivals before the lights even went out. History suggests that questioning him publicly is rarely a safe move. Marc Marquez himself has always responded to doubt in the same way, not with words, but with intent. Silence, in his case, is never emptiness. It is pressure building. Those who have raced alongside him understand that he carries slights like fuel, converting them into focus so intense it becomes almost unsettling. KTM may have intended to spark debate, but they may also have reminded the world of the danger of awakening a competitor who thrives on being underestimated. As the discussion spread, it took on a life of its own. Commentators dissected every syllable. Fans replayed the quote, searching for hidden meaning. Social media turned speculation into spectacle, amplifying emotions until they bordered on obsession. In this digital age, a single sentence can echo louder than a race victory, and KTM's words echoed everywhere. Yet beneath the noise lies a deeper truth about MotoGP itself. This sport is not only about speed. It is about narrative, about heroes and antagonists, about the constant rewriting of expectations. Marc Marquez has spent his career shattering scripts, and perhaps that is why even now, years into his journey, a simple mention of his name can destabilize an entire paddock. KTM's remark did not create this reality. It merely exposed it. What makes this moment so compelling is its timing. MotoGP 2026 feels close enough to imagine, yet distant enough to fear. Teams are projecting futures, riders are calculating longevity, and manufacturers are weighing risk against reward. In such an environment, certainty is rare. Marc Marquez represents uncertainty in its most potent form. You cannot fully predict him, and you cannot fully dismiss him. KTM's words danced on that razor's edge. There is also an emotional undercurrent that cannot be ignored. For many fans, Marquez embodies resilience. His return from injury was not just physical, but psychological, a reminder that greatness is not defined by uninterrupted success but by the ability to confront vulnerability and emerge sharper. When a major manufacturer comments on him, it feels personal to those who have invested years of belief in his journey. As the paddock continues to buzz, one question refuses to fade. Did KTM underestimate the impact of their words, or did they understand it perfectly and choose to speak anyway? In MotoGP, nothing is ever truly accidental. Even silence is a strategy. Even provocation can be a form of preparation. Perhaps KTM wanted to test the temperature, to see how the ecosystem would react to the idea of Marc Marquez being questioned, challenged, or reframed. What is undeniable is the result. The conversation has shifted. MotoGP 2026 no longer feels like a distant chapter. It feels alive, charged, and emotionally loaded. Marc Marquez, once again, stands at the center, not because he demanded attention, but because attention follows him like a shadow. And so the storm continues to build, fed by speculation, emotion, and the unrelenting hunger of a sport that survives on drama as much as on speed. Will this moment fade, replaced by the next headline, or will it linger, shaping attitudes and decisions as the season approaches? Will Marc Marquez respond in the only language he truly trusts, the language of risk and victory? Or will KTM's words mark the beginning of a rivalry that defines an era? The engines are still silent, but the noise has already begun. MotoGP has always been at its most fascinating before the lights go out, when nothing is certain and everything feels possible. Right now, the paddock is listening, watching, and waiting. Waiting to see whether a single statement will become a footnote, or the opening line of a story that explodes when Marc Marquez finally twists the throttle and answers every question the only way he ever has, at full speed with no apologies. The waiting, perhaps, is the cruelest part of all. In MotoGP, anticipation can be more exhausting than competition itself, and this moment has stretched nerves thin across every garage. Behind closed doors, conversations have shifted tone. Engineers talk about data, but their eyes betray curiosity. Team principals speak of development plans, yet their words circle back, again and again, to one name: Marc Marquez. The KTM comment did not simply stir debate. It reopened unresolved questions that many believed had already been answered by history, injury, and time. What happens when a legend refuses to fade quietly? That is the unspoken dilemma now hovering over MotoGP 2026. Marquez is no longer the reckless prodigy shocking the world with impossible saves, yet he is not a relic clinging to past glory either. He exists in a rare space between eras, carrying the memory of dominance while adapting to a grid that has grown faster, younger, and more aggressive. KTM's words landed precisely in that space, forcing everyone to confront a truth they may have preferred to avoid. Marc Marquez is still relevant, still dangerous, and still capable of reshaping the championship narrative. Emotionally, the paddock has split into quiet camps. Some see opportunity in the turbulence, believing that any distraction around Marquez weakens his aura. Others sense the opposite, recalling how often doubt has acted as a catalyst for his most ruthless performances. There is a reason riders rarely speak his name lightly. There is a reason even casual remarks feel heavy when attached to him. MotoGP remembers. It remembers how quickly respect can turn into regret. Fans, meanwhile, have turned this moment into a referendum on belief. Is Marquez still the benchmark, or is he a brilliant chapter nearing its conclusion? KTM's statement, intentionally or not, has forced supporters and skeptics alike to choose where they stand. The debate is no longer theoretical. It is emotional. It is personal. It is fueled by memories of elbows on asphalt, titles won against the odds, and comebacks that felt almost defiant. As speculation deepens, one cannot ignore the strategic dimension. MotoGP has evolved into a chess match played at extreme speed, where psychological pressure is applied long before race day. Words, when placed carefully, can destabilize rivals, inspire allies, or test reactions. KTM is not naive. They understand the weight of a sentence spoken into the public sphere. Whether the intention was provocation or honesty, the effect has been the same. The equilibrium has shifted. Marc Marquez, for his part, remains an enigma. History suggests he will not rush to respond verbally. His career has taught him that explanations fade, but actions endure. Silence, in his world, is preparation. Every question mark placed beside his name becomes motivation stored away, waiting for release. Those who underestimate the power of that silence often learn too late what it means. MotoGP 2026 is still forming, still undefined, and that uncertainty is precisely what gives this moment its intensity. The season has not begun, yet the emotional groundwork is already being laid. Rivalries are being imagined. Conflicts are being framed. And at the center of it all stands a rider who has never needed permission to disrupt expectations. Perhaps this is the true legacy of Marc Marquez. Not just the victories, not just the championships, but the way his presence alone can bend the conversation of an entire sport. KTM spoke, and MotoGP listened. Not because the words were loud, but because the subject was impossible to ignore. As the countdown to 2026 continues, one truth grows clearer with every passing day. This story is far from over. The tension will follow the grid from test sessions to race weekends, from whispered paddock gossip to roaring grandstands. And when the lights finally go out, when speculation gives way to reality, the answers will not come from interviews or statements. They will come from the track. Until then, the question remains, hanging in the air like unfinished business. Did KTM simply spark a debate, or did they unknowingly light a fuse that leads straight back to the most relentless competitor of his generation? MotoGP has a way of turning words into consequences, and Marc Marquez has a way of turning doubt into speed.